The nice thing about this story is that there was a tiny little message in the newspaper that Vattenfall, apparently, when they bought a German energy provider, they oversaw some things with European regulations.
Nowadays, nobody reads contracts before signing them. We know that since Toll Collect.
So when they took over this company, well, the European law says in this case, if one of those companies is bought, the mother organization carries the risk. And in this case, the regulation was that the other organization carries the risk for it. So if one of those things blows up, the Swedish people would be, or the Swedish government would be in charge. So one of the few little positive examples.
Not only in Vattenfall were some problems with nuclear power, especially there was a very nice story in Biblos when some repairing workers refused to do their work because they said that the conditions for working were so bad that they couldn't do this while complying to the laws.
So, quote, "You better not touch anything because otherwise you're in jail with one leg."
So in Sweden the government is liable. Here in Germany every single worker is liable.
Not only in Biblis, also other atomic reactors that were bought in the 70s have this issue. And there's a project for next generation power plants.
So there is a new power plant built in Finland that went so wrong that the Finnish government actually stopped the construction.
And the reasoning was that the executing companies would have an excessive lack of professional knowledge. Siemens.
Und sie hätten einfach, nachdem selbst Fehler, auf die sie hingewiesen wurden, über Jahre hinweg nicht korrigiert.
And they hadn't corrected any of the many mistakes they'd made over the previous years.
Bestreitet natürlich alles, ist völlig und so weiter. Da gab es eine schöne Beschreibung von der Baustelle.
And there was a lovely description from the building site. One of the engineers said, "It's like the Tower of Babel. I stopped after 27 languages. I stopped counting." There's a positive aspect which shouldn't go unmentioned. Which is that the Russians perhaps wouldn't have had as many concerns in such a building action, so I'm in many ways quite relieved that it's happening in Finland and nowhere else.
I suppose you'll have to give an introduction to this. There were so many news items that made us say, "What? What's going on now?" And one of those was this one.
Also da kann man sich nicht ausdenken. Also ein radioaktiver Kinderpornograf
fährt allein in seinem Auto durch Irland. Das kann man
radioactive child pornography consuming teacher driving alone in his car. I just imagine those people patrolling the street with Geiger counters. One of the things that we had all of the year, going on for all of the year, is Asse, a depositing site for radioactive waste, and that had a whole string of mishaps and scandalous. First of all, a collapse was feared, then some liquid sipped into, then they found old leaking barrels of radioactive waste, and of course there was plutonium in it, harmless plutonium, the harmless kind, of course, and then it was suddenly 28 kilos, and then the script goes on, another liquid event, and the roof collapsing. The link led to the Federal Radiation Protection Authority. It's now a 404 link. And this is Chancellor Merkel being accused of having known about the problems for several years. She actually was the minister in charge for a while.
Zu diesem Zeitpunkt steuerten wir schon hart auf den Bundeswahlkampf zu.
At this moment, we were already steering close to the election, and a lot of the politicians in this country had that have a hand for timing, are good with timing. Mrs. Merkel? Well, she probably read the news. So, as we mentioned, we had one politician who had a hand for timing, and he had this awesome headline where he said, Sigmar Gabriel is the person in the SPD party who can set positive accents, and at least he has a hand for timing. So, pieces of human bodies in an atomic nuclear power area. There's a parallel interesting story in Italy where they figured out that the state has done all of their garbage to the mafia, and they put it on ships and sent those to the ocean and dropped it there. And there also were ships with nuclear waste that were sunk. And well, when the mafia does that, they can also put some dead people in there as well. Kill two birds with one stone. So the analogy was perfect at that point. Banks are also pretty creative with that respect, with derivatives and stuff. And sometimes you ask yourself, where do they stop with their creativity? At a certain level of debt, it's too big to fail. And you have a lot of pressure. So you have to think outside the box. And when they got bankrupt, they found enough uranium for an atomic bomb. I mean, we mentioned financial bombs and that they might go up, but that's not what we meant.
Greenpeace also had an unambiguous opinion, which we can all agree with. If the world was a bank, you would have saved it a long time ago already. And not only firms, not only companies have gone bankrupt this year and need to deal creatively with their debts, but also governments in the US and Germany. And in the US, they've attempted to sell bonds, and in the US no one has bought them. So they found a very innovative solution, namely that the Federal Reserve, the Fed, the central bank of the US, supposedly independent of the state, has printed more money in order to buy the bonds released by the state. So The Economist illustrated how that works financially. We've got a magic hat, we've got a tap coming out of it, we print money, we use that to buy the bonds, so the state is no longer bankrupt. Which allows us a good transition to the Bailout Award, the Franz Josef Strauß Bailout Award. We'll just explain this in case not everyone ever knows it. He was the Bavarian finance minister who lent the DDR government $1 billion marks, which is quite a lot of, not that money now, but quite a lot then. But it was. And with these 2 billion marks, the German Democratic Republic, the DDR, was able to survive for several years. That is its excellent management in today's figures. From now, a bank wouldn't be able to even to pay all their bonuses.